Welcome back, everybody. And for those that are joining for the first time, welcome. And if you don't know me, I'm Gabriel Lascano, and I will be doing a course to teach you guys about collaboration with Unity and how to make a basic 2D game. We will be exploring the tool, the Unity tool, so you can get familiarized with how and which are the main tools that you will use to be able to create a video game. Um, I want to start saying that this course is in partnership with New Media Manitoba, as you can see in the screen. They were the ones that helped me to get this possible. So let's get it started. And today I'm gonna just start giving you a brief description of what we will do. So the same as the last time, if you want to follow along on the first steps, I have prepared a website. This is my website, so you can just copy it and paste it and put it on the side while you're looking at this if you want. If you also want to follow along the course, this time I will try to go a little bit slow so you can also try to do it at the same time. And we have a chat here, so if you have any questions, please just feel free to ask, and I will be more than glad to answer you. So here in my website, as I told you, I prepared a little course. We went through this on the previous video, on the previous streaming. Now here, if you go, there's gonna be the streaming video. If you missed, I split the video in 7 parts, like the main important topics that were touched on each of the sections, so it's a little bit easier to follow. Maybe there's some things that you already know and you want to just skip, you can go to the next video. So just a quick summary. Last time we went through what was going to be covered in this course. We started talking about what's version control. We talk about Git, why we decided to go with Git, how to install it in the different platforms. We generated our SSH keys, which for those who didn't see last episode, is the way we are going to connect our local repository with our remote repository. I recommend you guys, once you are going to start doing this part of the video, like this session, to go back to this one. You can either watch the video or follow this website, and it will make things way more easier. It's not like you need some of this. It's important to have it to be able to start doing what we will cover on this session, but you will be able to do it without it. So that's why the first class, it was a little bit different, and it was more about talking more about Git and collaboration. We also talk about different host companies for your software development version control, and the one that we will be using for this case will be GitHub. There's some steps that I created for you to set up your SSH key with GitHub, so you can connect your repos with your project. Here, hello. Then I propose another solution, because Git, the normal way you will use it is using it through the command line or the terminal in Mac and Linux. But it could be a little bit challenging and overwhelming. So I am proposing some solutions, some alternatives that uses user interfaces like GitKraken, SourceTree, GitHub Desktop. Those will make things way more easy, because you will have a visual tool that will let you do the things that you normally do with Git on the command line. So we are gonna cover part 2 on this one. This one will be a little bit more focused, or mainly focused on Unity, to get to know the tool and how to set it up with Git. If you miss on the previous session, I just want to show you the type of game that we will be developing during this course. Is pretty simple, but we will cover movement, like the physics to jump, animations that you can see, how to attack, like the platforms, how to interact with objects in the world, checkpoints like this one, how to fall and respawn, how do you get attacked by an enemy and lose life, and that you can hit your enemy to kill it so it will die, and also has an animation. This and a little bit more will be covered in the course, so let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about like game development itself. It's something that for myself is my greatest passion, after my wife and my daughter now. But like doing video games is something that really fulfills me. I love doing video games, and this was since I was very young. Like my entire life, I loved games, but making them is way more satisfying. Like gives me more satisfaction. So when I was starting to look into how to make games, well, I first started when I was doing my computer engineering degree into how to make a game using like a programming language. And of course, because it was not a game development course, I ended up doing my first game, like my first games in Visual Basic, and it was just a console game. And then the other one that actually had some UI, like UI elements, it was on Java. So you can imagine doing that there. It was very fun. I really loved it. That's why I knew I needed to go further. So I started to investigate, and I found there's some game engines, which are a great tool for you to build like an entire game. This will like cut like enormously the time that you have to spend and the skills you need to make a game. Like you of course need a lot of skills still, like to be able to make it, but it's not like everything just in code, which sometimes could be pretty long to do. So the engines, there's a couple, there's a bunch game engines that you can use, but there are like some very popular now and common use game engines. The two big ones that we can know, and like they're the most known in the industry, it's Unity and Unreal Engine. So those two engines will let you do games. There are some couple of difference between the both. I will say one of the main difference is that Unity, you will program it using C Sharp, which is the language that you will use to program your games. In Unreal, you will have to use C++ to program your games. So this is one of the main difference that makes some people not go with Unreal, for example. Of course, this is just my personal opinion. I have seen thousands of videos of different reasons why people use Unity or different reasons why people use Unreal. There are videos where people say that Unity is as capable as Unreal, and some others say that if you want to just make AAA games, you have to go with Unreal. But there's a whole thing. There's a huge topic about it. I love Unity. I have worked with both, and for the sake of this course, because we are gonna start from it, like from the very beginning, I wanna teach you guys in Unity how to do a 2D game, like the one that we just saw. So I prepared this website here, and what we are going to do is I recommend you guys downloading the Unity Hub. So the Unity Hub, it's something that Unity has released like not long ago, I will say, and it's a pretty good tool because Unity has different versions, like similar to every single software, like even like Windows or whatever. Everything has versions. That's because you like the company that is making it keeps making improvements and giving more features and listening to the community to alter the tool and give more to the community, right? In this case, like Unity has different versions, And what happens is that when you start your project, you most likely will start with one version. But because games take so long to make, it's not something that you will do in a couple of days. You usually end up with an older version than the last version of Unity. But the next time you want to make another game, you probably want to take advantage of the latest bug fixes or the latest features. But you don't want to update your previous project because it will probably break some things. For the most part, like lately, Unity has been pretty good with the updates. Like sometimes, of course, you can just update your project to a newer version, and for the most part it will go well. You will have to maybe refactor a couple of scripts and you will maybe lose some things, but it's not much. I recommend you looking into like the comments on the patch to see what was changed and see if it will affect your project. But in the past this will be catastrophic. Like I remember once, like the first time that this happened to me, I was using a very old version of Unity and I moved to 5 something at the time, and the entire project just broke. Like everything was broken. I remember when like even get component, that's something, a proprietary from Unity, uh, was introduced and all the code was changed. So you will have to go through all your code and change it. So it's kind of like a fun like thing that I wanna like, to share with you guys. But that's why Unity has created the Unity Hub, which let you keep the projects and your like Unity versions. So I'm just gonna open it here so you guys can see how it is. So this is the hub, and its main power, to say, is that instead of you installing each Unity version, because that's what we used to do when the hub didn't exist, you will install each version of your computer in a different folder, keep track of it, open it, like open your Unity using the right version for your project, because if not, then it's gonna be like the refactoring and everything. In this case, you just install your version. It will be hosted here, and when you are gonna launch your project or when you are gonna create a new project, you just go ahead and select which which version you wanna use for your project. So the hub has made things way easier in that regard. So I will suggest you guys to go ahead and download the hub. If you, as I told you, you can start following up. If you have any questions, just ask them. And if not, you can just look at this video later in the recording in the YouTube channel, or you can follow this website. The next part is the activation of the hub. So you see here licensing, and some people might get a little bit scared when they hear about licensing. And if you know a little bit about games, like licensings are so expensive. I like a license for a game engine. It's highly expensive if you are just starting with games. But fortunately, Unity has made an like a personal activation license, like a Unity personal use. This is something that made the change, like make the difference for Unity, because like a lot of indie game developers will be able to use it. As you can see here, I have just the quick description that Unity has the personal use, meaning if you don't use it professionally. So like if we, as we are doing it right now, we're just doing it for learning this course, or if you're in your school and you want to use it, or just by yourself, or you want to just make a game as a hobby in a game jam or something like that, or if your company earned less than 100,000 in gross revenue in the previous fiscal year, which is it's quite a lot. Like it's some money. Not like for a decent company that will be nothing, but for like a startup or like you as a game indie developer, it will probably be enough to cover you until you start getting actually revenue from your games. So it's a great option. So for you guys, here is as well like the picture and how to set up your license. It's pretty easy. Once you open the hub, it won't let you go through because you need to activate your license. So it will take you right away to the license management. If not, here as you can see, you will see the general and the license management tab. You will be there and you will be able to see to activate your license. Once you get here, it's gonna ask you if you wanna do the Unity Personal or a Unity Plus or Pro. The Unity Pro will give you access to some extra features in the engine if you wanna pay the license, like the seats, and it will make the dark theme appear, which is pretty nice. But like for the most part, it gives you pretty good features when you are publishing a game. For example, I don't know if you have seen. I can show you here in the game. When you start loading a game, this is the splash screen made with Unity. If you have Unity Pro, you will be able to override that and just add Shadowhood Company, Gabriel Lascano Company, um, into the splash screen. So those are kind of one of the features. There's a lot of more, but like we are not gonna cover this right now. The link to Unity is there, so you can go, and if you want to read a little bit more about it, I will encourage you on doing it. After you activated your license, we are going to start downloading the version that we need. So Unity Hub has like a feature to get those new versions. So if I go to installs and I want to add a new version, it will pop up this nice menu and it will tell me the latest official release and the latest pre-release. And that's everything that it will show me. Like it's good because I know which are the like the versions that I can use. For example, in my case, because I have to keep checking for the latest like the latest version and the latest patch on Unity. So in my company, we can develop like with using like taking advantage of the latest features that Unity has. I can go and start like looking into the alpha, into the beta, just making some test projects and checking it out to see what was introduced and if it's something that we want to use or not, right? So it's pretty handy and I liked that feature. And also we have like the stable versions. But what happens if you already have a project before and you really need that version? Like as you can see here, I have some versions here. Well, you can head to Unity Archives. I think I added here. Yeah, Unity Archives. This is the link. Oh, sorry. Uh, you go here, and in here you will be able to select which version you want to check. So that's what I was telling you. I think the first time that I had the error, I was going from 3 to 4 or something like that, or 4 to 5. I had a major trouble there, but like now it's more stable. You can select which version and then you can go through all the patch they have created. You can go and see the release notes, which is pretty good and handy. And then you can, if you don't have the hub, you will have to download it directly, or you can just click the Unity hub and it will open the Unity hub here. That will just pop up here and it will show like it's gonna start downloading. It's gonna ask you some extra things, which is great because it's, let me see if I can show you. For example, I don't know if I have this one here. You can add some models. So for example, well, let me just start again. This is something very important. Unity, difference that has with like just doing a game in plain programming language um, is that Unity is a multi-platform engine. What does that mean is that Unity is capable to making a game to like to produce a final game to different platforms, right? So as you can see here, these are all the platforms that Unity can build to. So I can build to an Android, to an iOS, to Linux, to Mac, to Windows platform. So for the Windows phones that doesn't exist anymore, but like there's some like the HoloLens and things like that, WebGL, and the normal Windows. And this is for the Magic Leap. So you will think like, oh, okay, but like this is basically for a mobile game, but it's not that way. Like mobile games, different phones have different OS, like, and you need to develop with a specific type of language to be able to run an application there. So if you want to run an application in an Android device like a Samsung or something like this, you will need to develop it in Android. So that's why you like Unity is so powerful, because you build just one game, but you can export it to basically everything. You will have to do some adjustments, but it's minor compared to doing the entire game in different languages. For Android, you will require these little guys, the Android SDK, NDK, and the OpenJDK, to be able to build to your phone. In case of iOS, you will, when you build, you just get an Xcode project, which is something that you will open with Xcode, and then you will be able to build to your phone. And when you build for example, Windows, then you will get an exe file, exe file, and a bunch of folders that you will require. And the WebGL, you basically get like a web version of it, which is what we have here. Okay, so that's how you will get the Unity version. So in this case, guys, I will like you to get Unity 19.1.10. That's just because it's a version that I have tried, I have tested, and I liked. There's features that I like about it, and I started the project in this one. So if you guys can go ahead and download this one, you will be able to follow along. Okay, so now let's go into what really like looks interesting, and it's creating your first project for like in Unity. So when we are gonna create a project, I'm gonna just go ahead and doing so you guys can see how is the process. So I will go to projects, and I will go ahead new, and I'm gonna say I wanna use this version. This will generate this little window here, and this is something pretty cool from Unity, and is that, well, it also happens in other game engines. But what basically we have here is templates. A template that has some predefined configurations and packages for a specific type of game that we can build. So you can see here we have 2D games, 3D games, 3D games with extras. For example, the VR lightweight pipeline renderer, the render pipeline, sorry, or just the lightweight render pipeline. So these are just like some cool templates that will help you to start like a little bit ahead of what you need. It doesn't mean that you, once you create one, you cannot go to the other one. Like I started in a 2D game, and then at the middle I decided, oh no, I want to have a 2D game, yeah, but with some 3D objects, because I wanted to like to be a platform, but like with 3D models or something. You can still do it. Is perfectly doable. It's just that it's gonna require you to make some changes in the configuration. Same applies for the 3D, like you can roll back from 3D to 2D, but as well this will require a little bit more of work, because you added at the beginning extra things that at the end you won't want to use. And in game development, for example, when we talk about mobile, optimization is key, because we are trying to run a powerful game and a powerful application in a device that is not as capable as a computer, for example, or a platform like a PlayStation or Xbox or something like that. So we should, from the beginning, always try to select the correct template that we are going to use. In this case, we are going with a 2D game, as we saw in the game. So we are going to go ahead and select this one. What we have here is just our like the name of the project. This is important for you to recognize what is this game about, basically. So try to give a meaningful name. So I'm gonna call this Unity Basics, and then you're gonna go and select where do you wanna save your project. In my case, I wanna save it into Unity projects, and for now, just for the sake of this course, I'm gonna save it directly here, like into Unity projects. We are just saving it as a Unity project. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit create. This will start a process. There you go, the Unity like starting logo from their like engine, and this will start like creating all that I told you. Like you see the Unity package manager, so it's trying to see, like, depending on the template that I choose, to see what do I need to run a 2D game, like what's the basic that I need. Of course, this doesn't mean that it's gonna give me like a complete game. It's just the basic configuration of the engine. So you see here, it's importing a couple of things. It's just moving things around. It's just creating a bunch of folders that we need in Unity to be able to run. I will go a little bit more into the folders that Unity creates. Not too much in like what exactly each one does, because maybe at this point of your like learning curve is that important. But there's something that is pretty important to know about when we are talking about version control, because there are a lot of files and folders that Unity creates when you open, like what is that you don't really need to push into your host, like into your hosting version control, like GitHub, because those ones doesn't really matter to the game, like in a certain way. Like Unity is capable to recreate them in your local machine when you reopen. So and they are like, some of them or most of them are related to your local machine, so it's better to not have them like in the cloud. Okay, so here we have our Unity project, right? So now that we are here, you probably think, like, you get a little bit overwhelmed, like this looks a little bit scary. There's a lot of things going on here, and you probably don't understand if you have never seen something like this before. But don't worry, this that's pretty normal. Like I know it for a fact, because even when I started, it also looked a little bit overwhelming to me. Let me just adjust it to the size of the screen. Sorry, I have a widescreen monitor, so a little bit of the screen could be cut off. Okay, so here we are in our Unity engine. So we are gonna go and cover each of the windows and tools. Well, of course, like the basic that you need to learn before starting a new game. So I want to start from here. So as you can see, there's a bunch of things, but all of this is like rearrangeable. What does that mean is, like, I can move this window and put it like somewhere else, and it will like completely alter my window, right? I can even let it like be as its own, or I can even like close it, or like I can do a bunch of stuff. This will depend on how do you feel more comfortable using the Unity engine, because I've seen like all kind of setups. Like there's people that like it completely different ways. It depends on like what also you are doing, the task that you're performing at the moment. For example, it's different when you're just programming something than when you are designing the level, like with a lot of detail. You are able to have multiple, for example, I can add here another game here, and I can have like two game views of the same, but like I can rotate them. Well, this one is not as relevant, but for example, let me add another one here, another scene. I can have two, and that they are looking like in different angles or things like that. So probably in a 2D game it's not that useful, but when you are working on 3D and you have to like manage those three axes, it's pretty useful to have different perspectives looking into the same object. Okay, so in order to change that, you just saw that you can just select the tab and like drag it and drop it wherever you need, right? Here I just move it there and put it like there. So you basically can play around, figure out what's the best one for you. This one right now, it's a custom one that I created, is Gabo. It's pretty similar to other ones that exist. I can show you, like here, this button is called layout. The layouts, it's basically different arrangements of these windows. So I'm gonna show you the defaults that Unity gives you. The 2x3, this is how it looks. 4 split, that's the one that I was telling you. This is when you, for example, you need to work on creating a scene and you have 4 different scenes that will give you 4 different views. If you have even more computers, like more monitors, sorry, you will be able to open a different one and have different looks to see how it's going. This is the default, so most likely when you open your game, it will look like this. This is the tall, wide. There's a bunch of different options. I really like this one because I have everything in hand that I need, basically. So let's keep going. Now, layers. Layers is something that we will probably use a little bit, but very, very basic. The layers is, how to explain it, like you have like different, as the word says, like layers. And because a game consists of objects in a scene, you can have objects in different layers, and then you can decide what's the behavior of each layer according to the other ones, basically. So I can say that I have a layer that doesn't interact with another layer because I don't want them, when they like interact or they collide, to have any interaction at all. I don't care if they are overlapping. Like actually, like I want them to not interact when they make contact. This probably will be way more explained once we start looking at it. Like right now might be a little bit confusing. This account button is just basically to sign in into your account. As I told you, you will need to sign into your account to use Unity. You don't need like a pro license. You can use the personal use. And these buttons here are just the collaboration. These we talk about it like last session, that we mentioned that Unity also has a collaboration tool, like similar to Git, that is proprietary of Unity. I'm not using it because if you like just stay with Unity, is great. But if you tomorrow decide to add something extra, or you wanna keep your another type of project with version control, you won't be able to do it. And I want you to learn Git so you can use it in different projects, not just on Unity. So we don't really care about those. Here, your 3 action buttons. The important things about them, this is the play. So when you hit play, it will start your game. You will see that when I click play, it will turn to blue, meaning that the game is running. You can pause your game, and while it's paused, you can like go step by step in your game. I'm gonna explain you a little bit more once we get to the logic of a game, what means the step by step. But just remember, this goes step by step. I can pause and I can stop my game. So when it's not blue, it's nothing is happening. Something very important to notice is changes that you do, not all of them, but like for the most part, the changes that you make in your game while it's playing are not going to be like saved. You need to on play to be able to change things. That's that's good thing and a bad thing. Like it's a bad thing when you don't remember it and you hit play, then you start making some changes, and then you just realize that you were playing and you hit on play and you lose everything. But it's great because when you hit play, you can make all the changes to the variables and things that you want to see maybe different setups of an script without altering the base. Here we have two buttons that we will probably won't use too much here in this course. This is a little bit more like when you get a little bit more further in your development. But basically, this will just tell you where do you wanna, like, the objects that you have in Unity have a local position when, like, the position that they have on themselves, right? Like when it's easier when we get here, but there's two ways. You can go local or you can go global. Basically, the local is the local position of your object, and the global is it doesn't matter if it's the child of anything, is the global position. And the center is just to center your camera into the selection. Here we have the core tools that you will be using. Not too much these two, like this one's is just a custom editor tool, we won't use it, and this one is like a everything in one, but we won't use it. But from here we will be using this a lot. So the Rect tool, this is only for things that are like with UI, basically. That's a good example of it, because I haven't got to Rect transforms, but the Rect tool will let you scale objects using that, like a square, similar to like an image when you like pull the corners, basically. Then we have the scale tool. This one is for all the objects, so you will be able to just scale it. Similar if you have seen a 3D modeling program like Blender or something like that, that you can scale an object in any direction. So you will be able to do that here. Rotation, pretty self-explanatory. You can rotate an object. This one is just to move an object, and this one is just to pan around like in your scene. So I want to show you, like you can see there is changing. There are like hotkeys in your keyboard that are pretty handy for you because you will be using them and swapping between them pretty often. So if you go ahead and press Q, it will let you go into the hand mode. This will let you pan around, go zoom in and out. And if we had like a 3D scene, there's way more features that you can use with your mouse, but they are not relevant right now. If you press W, it will go into the move. So just so I can show you guys, I have here a cube. Let me just recenter it. Not a cube, like an empty game object. So if I go to pan move, I won't be able to see that, right? Um, oh yeah, sorry. This tool will help, like will let me know if I wanna select my object on the center of the object or on the pivot point. So some objects can have a pivot point in a different place. For example, let's say we have a stick. The pivot point might be just in one of the corners, but the center is in the center. So depending on where you wanna, for example, rotate it, it's gonna be different if I rotate it from the pivot point than if I rotate it from the center. Well, that's something that we probably won't use. Okay, so let's going back here. We have that. the pan movement. If I press double, sorry, I need to be here. If I press W, I will be able to move my object. So this arrow will let me move it in the y-axis, as you can see, and this one on the x-axis. If I had a 3D scene, for example, like this, I will be able to move it on the z-axis, right? But we are in a 2D game. That was just something, don't pay much attention to it. That will be something that we won't use, but it was just to show you how to do it. As you can see, there's like this little thing on the right that keeps track of everything that I'm doing here. I will get into there because that's very important as well. Okay, so then if we press again the E key, it will let me rotate my object on different like angles. You see, and and I can rotate them in all the axes, right? Now if I press R, I will go into the scale mode. Oh, something very important, like if you see here, there's this square. This square let me moves in both at the same time, which is pretty cool, but not very, it's not the best practice to use sometimes. Same for the scale. I can scale it in both at the same time, or I can just scale in one axis or on the other, right? And if you see, if I press T, it will get to the rect transform. For this object, is not relevant because I only have a transform. I will need to have a rect transform to be able to use that. Okay, so that's those tools. So remember, from Q to T, you will be able to use those keys. Most likely, you will be using W, E, and R. Those are like the most important ones that you will require. Okay, so now that we just covered that, we can go to this screen. I will go first to this one because it's another one that it's pretty nice. So when you need Windows, as I told you here, you can go right click on a tab, and you can add tab. This will only show you like the core tabs that you can have, like the core windows, just these ones. But that's not all the windows that Unity has. Here are all the windows that Unity have. There are a lot of windows that we can have, and we can even make custom windows when you start editing the editor, but we are not going to talk about that. So when you get here, you can go to the asset store, which is the one that I just opened here. The asset store is a great place that Unity has, which, as the name says, is just a store to hold assets. 3D assets, 2D assets, add-ons, so scripts, models, sprites, audio, templates, everything. Like everything is here. You can filter it by price, Unity versions, publisher rating. Like there's a lot of things here. Like you can make a game with just these assets here. Like you will be able to even make an entire complete game using free assets by just assembling them with all like everything that is online. But that's not the point of this course, so we probably won't be using it that much. Okay, so let's go back to our next screen, which is the scene screen. The scene screen, it's your like main tab that you will use for your game. So all your game, like your entire game for that specific scene, is gonna be here. So what do I mean about a scene? Like what that scene means? A scene is basically a level. It's not called level because sometimes it's not a level. It could be just like the menu scene or the credit scene, or it could be the level one, or it could be the tutorial. So basically here is where things happen. Here is where you will have things. So everything will occur here. There's a bunch of little things here. I'm probably not gonna go through them too much because we are probably not gonna use them a lot. These things just let me like change the view, like the shade, like the shading mode, like how do I wanna see my scene. This is very good, for example, when I wanna see the overdraw calls, um, or the lighting, for example. If I have lighting in my scene, I wanna see light overlaps, and this is mainly for like the wireframe for optimization and things like that. So that won't be covered in this course. Probably, maybe if in the future I make another video like in a higher level, I will start talking about those. This 2D and 3D, this is basically just let you toggle between those two modes, between 2D and 3D. Sometimes even in 2D, you might want to see what's going on in 3D perspective, but for the most part, when you are working on a 2D game, you won't use it. But when you are in a 3D game, sometimes you want to use a 2D perspective, right? And this ones I'm not gonna touch base because we are running a little bit late, so I'm gonna start moving a little bit. So Gizmos quickly is just like these objects, for example, like the camera is a gizmo, and I can change the size because I depending on what you wanna see, and you can toggle them on or off as I just did there. And this search bar, it lets you help, and you can search by the name or by the type of the asset. So for example, if I search by the name, let's say, oh sorry, it needs to be main camera. There you go. So the main camera is the only thing that is showing here. If I go and type by type, I will have to go to camera and it will show the camera. But if I go and search for, like for example, sprite, it won't show me anything because I don't have anything, right? And as you can see, this search bar is the same one that is in here, right? So let's jump to this next tab, which is very important as well. Like, well, all of the tabs that I have here open right now, they are the core windows, like the core tabs that you will need. That's why I keep this layout, because it's the most important that you will use all the time. So the hierarchy is everything, like it's the compilation, as it says, like it's the hierarchy of all the objects that exist in your scene. So everything that is dragged into your scene will exist here as a hierarchy, and you will be able to grab those objects by clicking them here. This is also very handy because sometimes you have a bunch of things there on top of each other, and you need to start like clicking here and like rearrange them. And also it's called hierarchy because you can create a hierarchy object. So I can create a nested child here and a nested child, a nested child. This will go forever. Mm, every single object in Unity here is called a game object. So whenever you put something into the hierarchy or into the scene, you will be adding a game object into your scene. This hierarchy, of course, if I delete this, it will get rid of everything, and my scene was changed. So everything that you have here, it's very important. So now let's move into our inspector, because you can see every time that I click something here, something happens in the inspector. So the inspector lets me inspect my objects either on the scene or basically on my hierarchy. So every time that I click something here, like the camera, or I click it here, I will be able to get into the inspector. So as you can see, the objects in Unity, all of them that are here, exist as a game object, and that's this symbol here, that little cube. I have the inspector. This lets me say if the object is active or inactive. So I can deactivate it, and as you can see, my camera goes away, like it doesn't exist anymore. Well, it's like it's inactive. Here is the name of my camera. I can change this name if I want, or I can leave it as it is. Here I have some configurations for the static. This won't be as relevant right now, but Static means like it doesn't move basically, or it doesn't get affected by something. So for example, light, so or navigation. So when you are on light static, you it's because you don't move, so you don't need to calculate like the real time lighting into an object. Or for example, navigation. We know if an object is static in the navigation, is an obstacle basically. It won't move, so it doesn't need to like get padding or something. But it won't be used too much. Here we have the tags. We will be using tags. So tags is just a way to recognize an object with a tag. And as you can see, we have some predefined tags. For example, editor only main camera. So the main camera will always come with that tag. And we have the player tag. Um, we will be creating more tags, and that's done here. And then we have the layers. This is basically the same as we had up there. That's why you can change the layer of an object. So depending on the layer you are, it will interact differently with other layers. And then every single object that is created into the hierarchy will have a transform, either a transform or a rect transform. A transform is just a compilation of three variables basically here that we can see. So the first one is the position in the 3D space of that object. So we have that our camera is positioned on the x 0 on the x axis, 0 on the y axis, and minus 10 on the z axis. So if we look at this, this is how it looks. You see, my camera is 10 units away from the plane, right? That's just so we can see things basically. But every single object, if I create a new object here, it will have a new position. The position is created where like your center of your camera in your scene is right now. So if my camera right now was here, that's why it's created here. If I go and select 0, 0, 0, then my game object will be moved here. So as you can like move objects using the arrows like visually here, you are also able to move them by this here, right? The same as the rotation. I can rotate it from here and I can scale it from here. Like all of that is completely doable from my transform. When you can have a different type of transform is when you start talking about UI elements. The UI elements, for example, I will create here a canvas. You see I created a rect transform, and I'm gonna create just a quick text. So a text exists in a different place because my canvas right now, this canvas, which is being rendered in the screen space, so it doesn't matter where I move the camera in the game. As you can see, the camera is down there, like it's looking at the game itself. Everything on top, like the camera doesn't matter if it moves. You see, like it's moving around the game. It won't change where is my UI because it's rendered on top of like the camera. So let me just show you here. I'm gonna create a quick quad so you can appreciate it. So let's just put it here and here. So we have our quad there. It's in the space. But if we move our camera, let me just focus on here a little bit. If I move my camera, you see is I'm losing like track of that object, but my text, if you don't see it, let me just make it bigger. Let's put it here. Here you have it there. So you have that text, and let's make it white so you can see it. Even though I move my camera, my text will always remain there. So maybe you can start now thinking, oh, that's great for elements in the UI. So similar to our game, our player health and life, even though my player is moving and everything, even if I move the camera, the health will remain there. So that's pretty handy. So let's go back into the Rect transform. When I have my Rect transform, that's when our Rect transform tool comes into play. As I told you here, you can like scale down those type of objects because they have a Rect transform. But aside from that, it pretty much works in the same way. It's telling me like where is the position, where is the rotation, which is the pivot point, and which is the scale, and well, also some anchors of that object. We will get into more detail about this, but just for now, you can like understand that every single object that is created in Unity will have either a Rect transform or a transform, right? So that's how Unity works. And then in the inspector as well, we can start having some additional components. For example, my main camera has this component called camera, right? And the audio listener. Those are components that I can add. Similar here, I can go here and say I want to add an extra component, right? And I have here a list that you can go through if you need something to add into your object. This is basically all the things that we need on that object to function as what it is. So that's why the camera has the camera component. So when I start creating some scripts, and for example, I create the player controller, our player will require to add a script called player controller. That's it for the inspector. And now we need to go into our game tab. So the game tab is basically just the preview of our game. So we need a camera that renders into our game view what's happening like in the game. So whatever the camera is capturing, depending on these parameters, these are basically variables in my code. So the variables that I affect here will affect the view of this camera and ending in a different rendering in the game view. So whatever the game looks like at the end is whatever it looks here. So that's why when you hit play, basically you play your game in this window, not in here. Some people don't have like the game view. That's why, for example, we go to the force split, it doesn't have a game window, it only has the scenes windows. So when I play, it will open a game window for me somewhere here, for example. But it's not like something that I really want to have or something like that. So it's for development, it's not something that you will be using, but for example on the UI, as you saw, I can show it how it's going to be displaying here. So it's pretty good to have like those two views. That's why I keep both, because I know how things look like in the end game. We're not gonna go too much through this, but this is basically the display that you want to show, the resolution you want to change, so the free aspect, standalone, or if you want to go to the 16:9, which is the phone, the scale if you want to zoom in or zoom out, if you want to maximize on play, which is basically when you hit play, it will maximize your window. This is important to check, so whenever you're working on your game, especially with UI, you gotta make sure that you play it on the big screen, because that's how your game is gonna look like at the end, and the UI will get a little bit messed up. You can mute your audio and other things that you can change here, but we are not gonna take a look at it right now. And then we have our project tab. Our project tab is all our like files that exist in our project. So everything that is in our assets folder will exist here, plus our packages, which is basically the extra plugins and libraries that Unity has imported for us to be able to work. And when we decided that this was a 2D project, that's why it took a little bit to start. it just imported all of these packages. For example, the text mesh pro is just like an improved text script that lets you do way more things than the text that we just saw before. So I have it split into like the project here, like my folder hierarchy, and a preview window that shows me what is inside. It's how I like it. I really like this type of view. But let's go ahead and look what's going on, like, because you see here I only have assets and I have the scenes. But if you go into your project, let me open our project. If we go to Unity Basics, you will see here, oh, I have way more folders than I have in my Unity engine, right? And you will be like, okay, what's going on? Like, why I have all of those when I don't really see them in my project? Like, is it something wrong, or what is going on? Well, no, that's not something wrong. It's just that, as I told you, there are some files and folders that Unity requires in the background to work, but you don't need in your game. Like, it doesn't require to go in directly into your scene or into your hierarchy. And those are the library, the logs, packages. Sorry, packages is over there because it's your like packages, project settings, and temps. From these folders, now we can start talking about Git. So as you can see here, these folders, that's what I was telling you, not all of them are relevant to a Git remote repo. You don't require to keep track of them because you are not actually manipulating them. Like, we never went and create a library folder or the log folder, right? So we don't require these type of folders to be kind of like track. Unity is creating them when we open them, so we don't need them. That's why it comes to be very relevant here in the website, the next step. So in order to configure our Git in our project, because I feel like we already covered a good portion of Unity. We covered the main windows and the main tools that we can use. Now we just want to go ahead and start configuring our Git project with our Git repository with our Unity project. For this task, I want you to show you like what we need to do. So here in the website, you will see that one of the most important things you need to do in order to configure your Git is you need a git ignore file. So what's a git ignore file? So I had here like also a reference. A git ignore file specifies intentionally untracked files that Git should ignore, but files already tracked by Git are not affected. So what it means is all the rules and folders, files, everything that we add into this file won't be tracked by Git. And it means that they won't show up in our Git Kraken. As if you remember our last session, when I changed it, for example, the README, and as soon as I change it and I save it, we saw it pop up into Git Kraken. If I add a restriction to not track the README in my git ignore, if I do it from the beginning, then if I made a change in my README, I won't be able to see it on Git because Git doesn't care about it and it won't be committed. All right. So that's basically what is a git ignore file. And there's a really nice tool here called gitignore.io. This nice tool will let me generate, as you can see here, it will let you generate a git ignore file with the programs that you don't really want. So it's not as easy as like, oh yeah, I just need to not track this. well, there's a bunch of things like as we saw already on Unity. So imagine for all the programs that we can use, we need to know every single thing that we need to not track. But we don't want, for example, to not track the project settings, because project settings are important to be shared in our repository. So if we don't do it properly, we could end up with a broken project that every time that someone else pulls it from the repository won't see the same as we are looking, because we didn't track properly our Git configuration with our git ignore. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go ahead, I am gonna configure that git ignore into our project. So as you saw there, we want to keep track of Unity. We don't want Unity to be like, we want to ignore some files from Unity. I will be using Visual Studio, so I'm gonna add it. If you don't use Visual Studio, or like your team is not gonna be using Visual Studio, you don't need to add it. And then I'm also gonna add the Mac OS, because I also have a Mac, and when I open it from there, there's are some files like the .ds that are committed, and I don't really care about them at this point. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit create, and this will just generate a plain text file basically. That's what a git ignore is, and this is how it looks like. It's basically telling me, look, I don't wanna keep track of your .ds store from Mac, because I don't really care about it. I don't want to take care about like these type of files. And if we go down here into Unity, you can see it's not tracking library independent of the capital letter, temp, objects, the builds, for example. I don't care about builds. Like, I can just build again a project. I don't need to save a build into my repo. That will just waste the space into our repository. The logs and the memory captures. So that's basically some of the things. And it's also telling me here something very important, which is never ignore. So git ignore also has rules to don't ignore things. Like, we just want to make sure that Unity is not ignoring our meta files. Why is that? Is because our meta files are really important. Like, Unity has a meta file basically for every single thing that you put in your project, and it keeps extra data of that object, and if you delete it, you can like lose a bunch of things. So we can check that out later, but it's just for you to know that metadata is something very important to have. Okay, so now that we have this, I am gonna go ahead and copy it. You can copy it, right? Select all. If you don't know how, if is Control A and then Control C, and you can go into your text editor. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna open it here in Visual Studio, because why not? And I'm gonna create a new file. I'm just gonna create a new text file. I'm gonna open it here. And I'm gonna go ahead and paste all of that instructions. So this is my git ignore, and this is what we require in order to our project to work like good for collaboration with our peers. So, but as you can see here, it's calling this file text file.txt. In my website as well, I made an important note here. You gotta make sure that your file doesn't have a name and your extension is .gitignore. It's very important, because I have seen that some people say, oh, my project is not working, and when I check the gitignore, is because they have .gitignore, that's the name of the file, .txt. And yeah, don't you worry, like, that's very common to happen, because the .gitignore is a special type of like extension, and if you don't save it properly, then it will save it with your txt and you won't be able to see it. So we're gonna go ahead and say save this file as. So I will go into my Unity projects, Unity Basics, and here I am going to say I want to save it as gitignore, .gitignore. So no name, and my file extension is gonna be .gitignore. So you see it's saved. Perfect. I saved my gitignore. If I go here into my folder, I have it here. It doesn't look like it looks like I have everything. Doesn't have a name. If I go to properties, I can check it's a type gitignore. So I have it here just in case if you want to check it later. This is how it should look. I have the screenshot there for you guys to check it out when you start like doing it by yourselves. So you go ahead and generate it, copy it, paste it, and make sure that it looks like this. Okay, so now the next step that we're gonna take is to connect our repository into GitHub. So just a brief explanation of what we did before is to configure your Git, you need to generate your gitignore, copy it into your file, paste it into your folder, and then we are able to go ahead and start creating our repository in GitHub. So let's go ahead and create a repository in GitHub. So here is the link, but I have here all the steps that you need to follow, an explanation of what everything means, because for the first time you might be like, I don't really understand what this means. But I added like just a quick description of every single parameter that you need to fill out. So let's go here. It's gonna ask me for my credentials. Here, I hope I remember them. Okay, so I log in. As I said here, once you log in using your email and your password, you will be able to get here into create your repository if you use the link that I gave you, of course. Otherwise, you will have to your repositories, and from there you can hit create a new one. But once you're here, it's pretty straightforward. So you have the owner of this repository. So it's myself, the repository name, which really the only thing that it matters is the name that I have to identify the project that I'm keeping track of. I recommend using the same name that you have for your Unity project, so Unity Basics. So just to keep it consistent, but sometimes you don't need it that way because your Unity project might be just a portion of a project, and it's a bigger project that has more than just Unity. So Unity Basics. Then here your description, as it says, is optional, so it won't affect anything. It's just for if in the future I have another developer, which here in GitHub are called collaborators, will jump into my project to help out or just to collaborate, and the description will help them to know what it is. So this is a Unity project for the online course collaboration and Unity Basics. And then you will be able to select if this is public or if this is a private repository. The public repository, as you can see here, anyone can see this repository. You choose who can commit. So basically, a public repository is free for everybody. Everybody can download it. Everybody can take it. It's open to everybody. You don't even need an account to download it. Of course, you won't be able to commit if you don't have permission, but it's open to everybody. And the private repositories are just the ones that you have. And you need to grant a specific and explicit access to other members of GitHub to be able to alter or like make some comments into your repository, right? And who can see it actually, like who can download it. In GitHub, this repo is before it used to be paid. I already talked about this in the last session, but I just want to talk about it. It is paid to make it was paid to have private repositories. You need to have like a license to be able to host private repositories. But not long ago, they made it public, which is amazing. Unfortunately for this course, because we are using Git Kraken was changed to be like for the private repositories to only be used on when you have a license. So for the sake of this project, I'm gonna make a public repository so you guys can play as well with what we are creating. You can pull it if you want, and you can download it once we start making the project. But I will encourage you guys to go ahead and just create your own. If you wanna later on like share it with me so I can check it out, see if everything is configured in the right way, we can just go ahead and do that later on. So 1 second here, I just want to make sure I can see the chat in case. Okay, so once we have decided that our repo is gonna be public, then we can initialize it with a README. A README file, as I said here in my website, here, this is a file that will introduce other people or even ourselves in the future when we forget what the project is about, of what the project is about. As well, it will explain how to use the project, how to deploy it, like everything. We can have all the information that we require there. It's very common to have in software development, and that's why we are gonna add it too. And we're not gonna add all like the things because I usually just have a template that I have to fill out for my like corporate projects, because when we're making like a project like that, like for a company, we need to keep track of everything because we want another developer to be able to open it and just need to read the readme to be able to keep working on it or deploy it or something. GitHub has some nice features here to add a git ignore or like a license, but I won't be using this one just because I didn't have too much, like when I added the Unity git ignore, it didn't went as well. It didn't have all the things that I needed, and especially when I added other ones like Visual Studio, for example. As you can see here, there's a bunch of things that are not tracked and are important to not track, and GitHub didn't add those for some reason. But I don't know, maybe it has changed. I haven't really give it a try to see if it has changed. If maybe some of you guys know about it, feel free to tell us. It will be nice if we can add it from here as well. It will just cut a little bit of time. But yeah, we're gonna create that repository right now. So this will create us a repository here in GitHub, and we have our repository with our code. We're not gonna take care about anything of this right now because it won't be useful for this course. As we already saw this interface on the last session where we were editing, for example, the README and things like that. And this is basically how many comments I have, how many branches I have, how I can clone it and download it, create new files, upload new files, and the structure of my project. Right now, the only thing that exists on my project is a README. So let's go ahead and keep going. So now we're gonna clone a repository. There are various ways to do it, and I posted here 2 ways. So if you wanna do it by command line, or if you wanna use a user interface program like GitKraken or GitHub Desktop. Depending on what you use, you will be able to get your project into your computer. So I'm gonna do both quickly just to show you. So we're gonna go ahead and go into GitKraken, as it says here. And when you open GitKraken, as I explained last time, you will log in using your GitHub credentials, and that will connect your computer, like this GitKraken, to GitHub. And because we already set up the SSH key in the previous session, so if you didn't do it, go back there and do it. You will be able to pull your repos without any trouble. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this little folder because not all the time you have this new tab. So I'm gonna hit here and I'm gonna select clone. We already went through these tabs in the previous video. So I'm gonna go ahead and select clone. So I wanna clone a repo and I'm gonna clone it from GitHub. When I select GitHub, it already knows who I am and which repos I have. So I'm gonna ahead and say, oh, I wanna clone it into Unity project GitHub. I can change the location if I want using this browse button, and here I can start either like looking for my projects or just typing Unity basics, right? I can select that and it will tell me like, okay, we're gonna create a Unity projects GitHub Unity basics folder here with your clone repo. So I'm gonna go ahead and clone this repo and I'm gonna say, yes, please open now this project. So we have here what we saw last session, our Git Kraken, nice Git Kraken with our left column with the master and the remote branches, our middle like history section, and our commits and like files section. What we are gonna do right now is let's go ahead and just close Unity for a moment because we don't really care about saving it, but whatever. We close it just to be sure. And what we're gonna do, this is just a little bit hacky way because of the sake of the course, so it's more explanatory. So we have here our project and we're already tracking this, right? I just wanna make a quick example. So we have this package updates. I'm just gonna copy this first and I'm gonna go into GitHub Unity Basics and I'm gonna paste it here. As you can see, it automatically showed me that I added that logs. But as we know, we don't want to track that, right? So we are gonna move our git ignore here, and when I move it, it tells me, oh, the only file that you actually have is your git ignore. Like the log that exists, like if we go here and we see here, we have the logs, but it's not tracking it. That's due to our git ignore. So our git ignore will automatically start ignoring those files unless I push them into my remote or like even into my local branch before I added the git ignore. So if I do that, my git ignore won't work. So I'm gonna show you a quick example. I'm gonna create here a new file called tracked file. It's just a file and I'm gonna commit this file. It's empty, doesn't matter. This file will be tracked even with the rule on .git ignore. So I'm gonna commit it. It's committed there, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna commit my git ignore. Boom. Let me just double check one thing here. Unity basics. Oh yeah, cool. So I'm gonna just go ahead Unity here and I'm gonna commit add .git ignore. I'm gonna commit it and it's there, right? Now my Git project knows about the rules that I wanna apply while I commit changes and I have like new things in my folder. But let's say, oh, I didn't want to track this file, right? So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna copy the name just in case, and we know it's a txt. I'm gonna open this guy and I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say I don't want to track something called this.txt file, save. My git ignore was changed here, and I'm just gonna commit it. Update.git ignore. There you go. But if I go and change here, hello, it's sorry, yeah, it will be changed here in, and Git will like take it as a change, even though I told him not to track this file. And I will be like, what's going on? Like, I changed that file, but that's something for myself. Like, it's maybe something that I just want to keep for myself, or it's a file like the logs or something like that, and it's tracking it. That's because I didn't add it before, like it was tracked before I add the git ignore. So that's why that's my mistake. So this was just a quick example. I am gonna go ahead and remove this, and just so we can start fresh in our project without having all of that, I am just gonna go ahead and delete it. And it's gonna complain because Git Kraken is open. Boom. So it's removed. So that's another thing important to notice. Changes that I made, they were in my local repo. I never hit the push button, right? So because I didn't do that, now that I'm gonna pull again my project, you will see that it's only the initial commit. Like the readme is gone. Like all those other commits that I made are gone. They don't exist anymore. That's because I didn't push anything. So make sure that you always push your code, because that you committed doesn't mean that it's saved in your remote repository. It's just saved in your local. Okay, so now that we have that there, let's go ahead and now for sure copy all of our things. So we're gonna go ahead here, copy, and we're gonna go into GitHub, Unity Basics, and paste everything in there. Of course, it's gonna be copying everything because in my local machine, it's actually doing it. Like it's actually copying everything into that folder. But in the repo, like you can see, it's copying 2,527 files, right? So it's copying a lot of things. But when you go here into Git, because at the end the git ignore was committed, like it was copied, Git only saw 23 files from all those 23,000 2300 files that we just copied, right? So that's because of our git ignore. If I remove my git ignore, it will go back to the 2000 something. If I commit everything and then add the git ignore, like the project will be in a bad shape. Like your git ignore won't be doing anything. It doesn't mean that it's broken. Well, it means that it's broken, but it doesn't mean that it's not like you cannot recover it. There is some commands in the command line that will let you basically remove everything from your code, apply your git rules, and add again everything of your code, and it will get rid of all of the files that are not supposed to be tracked. So that's something that sometimes is even useful when you see that one of your files has been tracked and you didn't really need to. Maybe you miss one of those rules in your git ignore, or when you create it from the gitignore.io, it didn't have that rule, but you saw it later on. So you can still add it, like even though you already tracked it. I'm gonna add quick instructions on the the specific comments that you need to, the specific commands that you need to apply through the command line or like the terminal in my website. So you can go ahead and look them there. So for good practice, I always go ahead first and add my git ignore. So add .git ignore, commit that, and then I can add this. As I was telling you, every single thing basically in Unity has a meta file, even like the folders. Like the scene folder has the scene.meta. So every single thing has a meta file which has some extra information that is really important for you to keep. That's why our git ignore explicitly says do never ignore meta files. Okay, so as a good practice, as I told you last time, we need to just make sure all of these are things that we want to change and like add. It's a good thing we have here the project settings. Here are, as it says, the project settings of our Unity project. For example, the Unity version, now 2019 1.10, if you don't know which one is, and things like that. So we can go ahead, for example, and update our README and Unity project for online course in Unity basics, made using Unity Engine version 2019.1.10 using free assets. Save, close, and I'm gonna go ahead here and commit update readme commit, and then I know all of this here. When I know everything is actually something that I want to commit, I can just go ahead here and stage all the changes. And I'm gonna go ahead here and say add Unity project to the project template. Okay, so we will commit that, and we have all that we needed and all that we need here. We're gonna go ahead and push, and that's it. It's in our repository. So now, for the sake of this course, we have what we need in our project. We don't really care about this anymore. Like, this project is irrelevant. I just need my GitHub project now that I have it here locally, and as you can see here, it has this .git folder that is hidden, so you probably won't see it unless you show your folders. But this means that you have a Git project. Here is a bunch of like files that has the configuration of your folder. Like, it will tell you which is the head that you are right now, like which is the branch, and like which commit you are at, and everything. Like, all the configuration is in there basically. Okay, so having that said, we now have a complete Unity project that is on GitHub and has all the files. Like, I can show you, they are here. I'm now going to, the next thing that I'm gonna do is gonna show you how to do the same process but using the terminal or the command line, in case you wonder how to do it. There's still like the tutorial here with the steps, with the code you need to use to do it, but just in case, I'm gonna go quickly and show you how to do it. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and open a terminal. So there's two ways to do it. One first way is you go open a terminal, a command line, and you will have to start like going through your, like navigating through your folders, right? But for the sake of this, like of Windows, instead of doing that, which is like long and maybe you forgot, like it's easier to go using your file explorer. So here's a little trick that it's very nice. Like I'm sharing this with you guys because it's something that I really love and enjoy. And it's like, look, I will have to go into to the to my like drive first of all. Like when I open my command line, I'm on C users gap, so I will have to go back, or I have to just go into E, which is annoying. So here I can just open my file explorer, go to the folder where I want to go, and we're gonna just go ahead again and clone it. So I want to clone it here. I can't clone it in GitHub because it already exists, so it will give me an error. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm just gonna click the navigation bar, and I'm gonna type cmd, and I'm gonna type enter, and this will just open a terminal that it's already has navigated into my Unity projects folder. So imagine that I am inside of a like a way more deeper um, like folder path. I can use that shortcut to get in there pretty quickly, if I don't remember the correct name of the folders and things like that. It sometimes is way useful like this. So now that I am here, I'm gonna go ahead and click this one, sorry, git minus minus version, so I can just show you. So my git version is this one, it's in Windows. And in order to pull that project, we can go here. It's telling me open that, go into the folder, and then I'm gonna use this command git clone, and I need to copy the name of my project. Where do I get that? So if I go here, I see this nice green button. I also have the image here. You will click clone, and here there are two options. Right now it's telling me I'm gonna clone it using my SSH key. If you did the previous session video and you configure it on your machine, you will have your SSH key and you will be able to use this method right away. If for the contrary you didn't set up your SSH key, or maybe you are in a different computer, you just need to quickly pull your project for something, you can switch to use the HTTPS protocol, and you will be able to pull it without the SSH key. The difference is that when you use this, you will be asked to prompt your credentials from GitHub. So you will be required to enter your email and then your password to be able to pull. If I use the SSH key, I won't need that. So I'm just gonna go ahead, click this button to copy. It will copy it to my clipboard, and I will go ahead here and I'm gonna say git clone, and I'm gonna paste that little piece of code. If you don't know how to paste in a terminal, just right click and it will paste your content. Now I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna hit enter, and it's gonna tell me I'm cloning into Unity Basics. This is the first time that I'm doing it from this repo with this SSH key. So it's telling me the authentication of the host, this is the address, can be established right away because I haven't like agree to use this fingerprint. So I'm gonna go say yes, and there you go. Oh, it gave me an error because I don't have correctly set up my credentials. Oh yeah, sorry. I switched the computer for this session because of the microphone, so I'm gonna use the HTTPS, which is actually good. We can show how this is done using when you don't have your SSH key in place. So git clone, and I'm gonna paste it here, and it's gonna ask me. Oh, there you go. I already have configured that, so probably I did it before. So once you do it once and you configure your credentials, it's gonna remember them. So for example, in my case, I already had prompted, probably when I was preparing the course, I prompted my credentials, like my username and password, or even actually Git Kraken. When you do that, it will most likely add those into your Git configuration. So that's why I have everything already set up. But when I do that, when I clone, it's cloning, boom, 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 boom. It tells me it's 100% done. And if I go here, I have my Unity basics. And as you can see, this is also a good example to show you guys. If we go to our GitHub, which has our main project, it has all of this. But the new one that I just pulled, it only has the files that are tracked by Git, which are like 23. Remember, like 23 plus these two, 25. So we only have this. This didn't come from kind of the server. This is just generated. So we have these files. As it is, like it's not a complete Unity project. But once I open it with Unity, with the Unity Hub, for example, it will start generating all those things. So let's go ahead and open the hub. I'm gonna go and say an add. Add is when you already have a project. So I'm going to select Unity Basics. If it recognizes that this is a valid Unity project, maybe it's not a complete Unity project, but it's a valid Unity project, it's gonna tell me, yeah, sure, you can open it. It's telling me, oh yeah, there you go, Unity Basics. The version that you're using is 2019.1.10. Yeah, that's correct. And the platform that you're using, you can just set it to the current, which is the Windows, and I can click it to open it. What this is gonna do is it's gonna generate all those other folders that we have on the other project. So let's go ahead and open. It's gonna do the same process that we saw at the beginning. Of like calculating the assets that needs to be imported, like the packages and like the scripts, and it's just gonna regenerate. Like as you can see, it just already started. Like it created my library, my logs, my packages, my temp folder, everything into here. So Unity is capable to recreate those folders that you need in order to run your game, but you don't really require them because they are bind to your computer basically. So it's something that you don't want to keep track of on Git because it will cause like a lot of troubles with with your coworkers. So having said that, this is how things will like how you can use your Unity project to have it set it up with your Git version control, especially using Git and GitHub. Is not only one, like basically the process that I just showed you is exactly basically the same that you will do with other host companies. Like if you are using GitLab or you are using Bitbucket, it will be pretty much the same process that I just showed you, where you have to create your repository, name it, select if it's a private or a public repository, and then like those kind of things that are not as important, and then you just put like your code. You need to add your git ignore because those are rules not from the host, those are rules actually from Git, and then you can save your project. So we are with our project, and it was pulled, it was regenerated all the files, and that's it. Okay guys, so for today we have concluded our session. I think we have covered what Unity, like the basic things from Unity, like the tools, the windows, and the basic like keys that you can use, as well as how to configure your .git, like your .git ignore file, which is pretty important. Up to here, the next sessions that we will have will be purely coding our game. So from the next week, we will just start doing code, importing our assets, basically having this project working. We and as we go, we of course we're gonna start covering some of like other basic things from Unity. For example, like what is a collider in Unity, which is very important, which is that green line that you see there, and that other like circle and that square. So those kind of things is hard to explain them without going into a game. That's why the intent of this game is to touch base on like some of the basic things that you will require while making a game, so we can explore the most important things on Unity. For games like this type, like of course we are not gonna be able to cover all like the extreme complex things that Unity has, like even for like making just a 3D game or a VR game, AR game. We are just covering the important stuff that we require in order to make a 2D game, but it will help, like it will give you the logic if you then want to go into a 3D game. Like the difference, it's big, but if you have the logic and you understand what is going on in this, like in this game, and if you follow it along, you will be able to then just jump into a 3D game without any trouble. The problem might be just the assets that you will require an artist to give you 3D objects and things like that. But aside from that, you will be able to make a game. Just a quick introduction of what we will be doing and what we will be covering on the next session, on the next week, is we will have all the sprites first that we will require for our game, how to import them, how to set them up, and we will start like setting up the background, how to set up like the level. I just created this level like this, but then you can expand and make it way more complex, and like having a bunch, like you have all this space, like you have infinite space to create your level. Of course, it depends on like the capacity of the like the machine that it will be running it. So if you have, for example, a phone, you don't want to have a huge like level, because it will crash your phone basically. But in terms of like capacity, you can make as big as you want your game. Uh, on the next time, we will go into tiles, how to set them up, how to basically set this up, and then we're gonna start like setting up the player, how we can have all of this, the animations, and probably we will start working on the player controller, which is the main script for the player, mm, which will let us walk, how to collide with these objects, how to like basically move, and apply the animations into the object, like even starting from the idle animation. As you can see here, our player is on idle mode there, uh, and how to make it walk, attack, jump. So that's what will be covered on the next session. I hope you guys uh, learn a lot in this session. If you need anything extra, like if you wanna follow and like complete this exact same thing by your own, here is the website again. You can go ahead and like go to it, so you can basically do it again. This is recorded as well, so I will be forwarding this recording to New Media Manitoba. They are also posting it into their channel as a full video. I also gonna be posting it into my channel. I just created a new channel for like this kind of courses, because I wanted to have it separate from like gaming and all of those things, like streaming games, and things like that. So that's why I created just one new channel that is for these courses, and I am uploading them in parts, with basically what was covered on each part, because we covered a lot of things here. Like we cover how to download the Unity, how to set it up, how to activate it, how to set up Git, how to set up and connect it to your GitHub, uh, how to pull your repository and like actually have your recently created Unity project into your GitHub account. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much everyone for joining, and I hope to see you on next week.